So there you have it. The 5th college football playoff rankings are out for us to unpack. Did the committee get it right? Some things that maybe were a little bit surprising, depending on how you thought this thing would go. But even so, as we head into the final week of the college football season, rather the championship week of the college football season before we get to the bowl games, I think this is a fair place for us to stand. A lot still to be decided. Let's talk about it right now. Starting at number 6, you have the Ohio State Buckeyes. And Ohio State, I think they have a very real case to be the best one-loss team in the country. I think you can make a case for them being even at 5. Now, I'm not surprised they weren't at 5. I think I was even a little bit surprised they were at number 6 because you could see Texas being in front of them, Texas obviously being behind Ohio State in this point. But Ohio State, look at the resume. 2 top 10 wins, and their only loss is a loss on the road by 1 score to number 2 team in the country now. Was number 3 team in the country when you played them. It's hard to make a really strong case against Ohio State. Now, the timing of the loss is probably why it's surprising they're as high as they are. I'm just saying, keep an eye on Ohio State in this whole thing. If we get some chaos across the board here, Ohio State, like last year, could find their way backdooring into this college football playoff. And if Ohio State gets into the college football playoff, I don't think a lot of teams will want to play them. With the way that defense is this year, with the way they have Marvin Harrison Jr. just being the best player in college football, quite honestly, the way Trevion Henderson's running the football, the way they would be, I think, looking for revenge, much like they were last year and almost beat Georgia to play for a national title. I'm just saying Ohio State at 6, I understand the objection to it. It won't matter this week because they don't play this week, but Ohio State at 6 is not an unfair ranking based on the resume and based on the eye test. So here at number 5, you got Oregon. And Oregon, the committee continues to tell us every single week. They stand on the table, they scream it at us, they throw stuff at us, and they tell us, we think Oregon is the best one-loss team in the country. This week is no different. They got 3 ranked wins to their name if you're freezing all of those wins, and they're getting dunked on continually for their win over Utah. People keep saying, well, yeah, it was Utah, but JD, Utah's got 4 losses. Utah's not really that good. They're getting a ton of credit for beating a team that wasn't all that awesome to start with. I hear what you're saying. The win hasn't aged tremendously well with that win over Utah, but look at who Utah's lost to if we want to get really deep into this. Utah, all 4 of their losses are to ranked teams. 2 of those 4 losses are to top 10 teams. So is it great to lose 4 games if you're Utah? No, but I do think that the Oregon win over that team should still hold a little bit of weight. It's good to see that it does. The resume is fine. The eye test continues to be the differentiating factor for Oregon. If you wanted to really press the issue here and try and make a case for Oregon, they throttled an Oregon State team. Now in Eugene, mind you, but Washington, a team ranked ahead of them, beat Oregon State at Oregon State by 2 points. So I know it's on the road, and the context is different for both games, but if you just go head-to-head there, situationally, I think that Oregon win over Oregon State should hold a good bit of weight. They're at number 5 this week, according to the College Football Playoff Committee. No problems there. If they win, I believe they're in. I don't know how you drop them if they avenge their only loss. So Oregon at 5, we're good with that. Good for the committee. At number 4, you got Florida State. In Florida State, they have those 2 ranked wins. If you freeze them, if you count that win over LSU as a top 5 win, that probably bolsters the resume a little bit. They are the lowest ranked undefeated team in the country at this point in time. Doesn't matter. Does not matter who's playing quarterback for you. It could be Jordan Travis. It could be me. If it's Tate Rodemaker and they're undefeated as the ACC champions, they will be in. Now, what does it do for TV ratings? What does it do for the product on the field? I'm not here to talk about that. Because you have a whole month to kind of try on a new pair of shoes offensively, which was previously Jordan Travis's offense. You get a chance now to tailor it and fit it just right to Tate Rodemaker and his style, but you got to get through this week. So you scratch, you claw, you find a way to cross the finish line as ACC champs, be undefeated, beat Louisville with Tate Rodemaker playing quarterback for you, and you'll be in the dance. This week you're at 4, all you can ask for. Just keep the main thing the main thing. Now at number 3, speaking of keeping the main thing, another undefeated team, Washington. They have 4 ranked wins to their name. They have a better resume than Florida State, probably a little bit better of an eye test as well. That's why you see them ranked ahead of them. Again, there's room for both in the playoff if they're both undefeated. But if Washington beats Oregon again, and we said this in our game preview of the Oregon-Washington matchup for this upcoming Friday, if Washington beats Oregon, not only are they in the college football playoff, not only does that, sort of make them without doubt when it comes to what anyone will have to say about them, I think just that, it would have some properties that would, I think, legitimize them to a whole other degree. The way that I put it in our game preview, it would have a whole lot of shut up juice for the rest of the country. Because we see Washington and we say, oh, well, defensively, some to be desired. Well, they only beat Oregon by 3 the first time. Well, they've won some games kind of close, and we don't know how we feel about that. If Washington beats Oregon as a top 10 team for the second time in a row, this time at a neutral site for the Pac-12 championship, more than likely as a playing game for the college football playoff, definitely a playing game for Washington. Mic drop, nothing to be said about Washington. They would, of course, find themselves in that top 4 on Selection Sunday. Now, at number 2, you got Michigan, and they were a top 3 team based on the eye test before playing Ohio State. We always saw them as a top 2 team. They are now a top 2 team in the committee's eyes because of that second top 10 win handling Ohio State. And it's just like Dennis Green said, they are who we thought they were. You probably thought Michigan was one of the best teams in the country. They legitimized themselves with the win over Ohio State this past weekend. And here we are again, deja vu, Michigan yet again playing for a Big Ten title, and yet again on the doorstep of another college football playoff berth. They got Jim Harbaugh back on the sideline right now, and it feels like to me that this Michigan team, where some teams might exhale a little bit and say, okay, great, we got our head coach back. Okay, great, we beat Ohio State again. Cool, awesome, glad we made it here. I think Michigan's saying, no, we're trying to finish this thing. There's blood in the water. We're trying to frenzy. That's where Michigan's at right now. Top 2 team. Again, as we've said for everyone in this top 4 right now, if they handle business, if they win out, they're in the dance. So there you go. Now when it comes to Georgia, being number 1, pretty obvious why they're number 1. You got the 4 ranked wins. The win over Kentucky, yes, counts as a ranked win in my mind. Then you had the win over Missouri, Ole Miss. You had the win recently over Tennessee. They're rolling. Georgia's rolling. The eye test, I think, doesn't leave anything to be desired from that standpoint. Yes, the Georgia Tech game was a little bit funky. I don't know what you want me to say. It was rivalry week. If they end up beating Alabama, needless to say, they'd be in the dance. But if they lose to Alabama, and that's kind of the more interesting part of this whole college football playoff scenario conversation. So tune in tomorrow on this show. We'll have a live show for you, 11 a.m. Eastern, talking about some college football playoff scenarios. And I promise you, a fair amount of those scenarios that people ask us about will be what happens if Georgia loses to Bama. And from where I'm sitting, if Georgia loses to Bama and we have a couple of one-loss conference champions paired with the undefeated Michigan, I think that's too many chairs that are spoken for in this top 4. I think Georgia, as a one-loss non-conference champ, even with the incredible resume, even with all the NFL talent, even with Kirby Smart, even with all that you could say about Georgia and how they would match up with a lot of these teams on a neutral site, I still think based on the resume and the conference title label, they would find themselves on the outside looking in. Now, do we even find ourselves in that scenario? We'll see, because Georgia, as the number 1 team, if they finish undefeated as the SEC champ, they will be in. So to recap it, we got Ohio State at 6 according to the College Football Playoff Committee. Oregon standing strong at 5. If they beat Washington this weekend, I think they'll have a very real case to be in the playoff. At number 4, you got Florida State. Win, and you're in. Same thing with Washington at 3. Obviously, that title fight for the Pac-12 against Oregon this Friday night in Las Vegas, Nevada. Then you got Michigan at 2. No surprise there. Georgia at 1. The undefeateds make up that top 4. And then that top 6 with a couple of one-loss teams. Make sure you're subscribed. We will talk a lot about playoff scenarios again tomorrow on this very channel, on this show, The Hard Count, 11 a.m. Eastern. We will be live. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram to stay up with everything that we got going on right here. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. And we'll see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.